Hey everyone, in this video we're going to build an AI agent from scratch with Next.js with the latest AI SDK. We're going to use Context7 as the MCP, and let me actually just show you how it works. So there is a chat box here, so I can say, hi, how are you? And we will get a response here streamed in. The idea here is that somebody could use this to audit a website. Maybe they're building a website, they want to improve it. So for example, I run ByteGrad.com. So I want to audit my website. We can say, could you audit my website? I can just type my domain here, and now we will see a response from the agent here. It's doing a couple of things. It's actually calling tools, and then ultimately here it provides an audit summary. So if I scroll up a little bit and zoom in, you can see here that the agent calls a tool first to check for the robots.txt file, to check if it's even allowed to crawl the website, and then it actually calls another tool. So basically an agent is a bit of a fancy word, but it really boils down to this tool calling loop. So it calls one tool. So you submit a request to the LLM decides to invoke a tool, and the result of that is then sent back to the LLM again, and the LLM may then decide to invoke another tool, right? So in this case, the audit tool, and it will provide a response, and that tool will have some output, and that output is sent to the LLM again, and the LLM can then decide to invoke more tools, or in this case, it just came up with a summary here, just some text, and finished the response, right? So not a super simple app, right? So there's some complexity here. And to navigate all of that, we are going to use a WARP here. They're also today's sponsor. I've actually had a great time using WARP. They have released WARP code. We can now use it to code sophisticated applications, including Next.js, as I'll show you in this video. And while doing so, we'll look at some of the powerful features that WARP offers and how to set it up and how you can use certain features. Okay, so let's just get started. All right, so you can download WARP for your computer on their website, and what you will get is basically an application like this. Now for you, it may look a little bit different because I changed the theme here. So by default, you will have some other theme. You can think of it like a terminal. So I can do things like ls and cd into certain directories. So you can see here, there is terminal, but it also has an agent mode. So if I say something like, write a script that transforms numbers into strings in JavaScript, just something silly, it picks up that it's not a terminal command. If I press enter here, you can see it will actually invoke an LLM and come up with a response here. So by default, I'm using a particular model here, and I've actually enjoyed using GPT-5 with high reasoning, so let me actually use that throughout the video. For now, it's using Sonnet, but it will actually show you these code blocks here in line. So let me actually make this bigger. So you can see it comes up with a script here, and we can add it to our project if we want. We don't want to do that. This is just an example, so I will just reject out of here. And there are slash commands here as well. Well, we're going to add an MCP in a bit as well. I can use a voice input. I can add images, pick model, attach context, and change directory. And so basically a prompting area, prompt our way to a very sophisticated application. Now, there are many other things in WARP that I will show you in this video. Now, before we actually start coding, maybe you're already thinking, oh, how can I get this theme? Because maybe you've seen a theme around, and I actually really like the theme. So I was already wondering that myself, so I'll show you here. So here in settings, you can also do Command O, open settings. But under here, you will see appearance, and then here you have theme, current themes. So I'm using the solar flare. If you click on it, it will show in the sidebar here the other themes they have. So in case you were wondering about that, maybe you like this, you like light mode, not for me, but maybe for you. I like this solar flare. Yeah, so this one, I like this one, so I'll stick to this. And it has tabs here at the top, right? So we have like one tab here. Well, it's a terminal tab, but it's not only a terminal, there's agent mode. We have another tab here for settings. I can close out of it. I can also open new ones here, but we'll learn all of that as we build the project, okay? All right, so where do we start? Well, we're going to scaffold a new Next.js application. All right, so we need to set up a project folder where we're gonna put all our files and such. I'm currently in the root directory here on my computer, but I have a dedicated folder for that. I could look it up myself, but I can actually write in natural language here. Can you go to the code folder on my computer? Okay, so let's actually see what it can do with that, right? So you can write the actual terminal commands yourself, or you can write it in natural language. So it found that it's not in the root directory, it's a little bit more nested. All right, so here you can see it has now navigated me to this directory. So now I'm in code, right? So if you're following along and you found a directory, then we can actually set up a new Next.js application. Now I could write in natural language, set up new Next.js app, but honestly, I prefer to just write a terminal command for this myself, because I'm basically always using create next app to scaffold a new Next.js application. And it's very deterministic, right? So there is no margin for error essentially. So we might as well just use that. When it comes to the beginning of a new project and architecture and things like that, I try to do a lot of it myself instead of handing it off to an AI agent, because it's very painful if something goes wrong. And actually, I made a quick mistake. I added a period at the end, which means it's going to put it directly in that folder, which is what I use most of the time. But in this case, I actually wanted to create a new project folder and put the files in that new folder. So you can just close the old one, open a new one to start clean. And here we can just say create next app at latest. We get these suggestions, by the way. So it's just right arrow to accept it. And now without a period, I can run this command. What is our project? Well, it's going to be AI website auditor. We will just stick to the default settings here, and it will set up our project, right? All right, so now it has finished setting up our Next.js application. Now, in Warp, how can we see this? Right, so we see this, but how do we know that it's actually, well, true? Or basically, how do we see the file? So Warp now has a file tree that you can view. So by default, you will see something like this, the Warp drive, your personal files here. But if you go into the project folder, you will see the files there. So it suggests here, change directory into that new project. So I like that. Let's go in there. All right, so now you can see it has CD'd me into that new folder. Now you will see something here, the project explorer. So if you click that, you will see an actual file tree of your project, right? So here, this is the familiar Next.js project overview structure. We are using the source folder, and in there, the app directory, not the pages directory. And indeed we have, right? And actually we can view the code in that file as well. So if you want to see the layout file, for example, I can actually open it up directly here in Warp. We do not need to go to an IDE. We can view the code and actually edit the code here directly as well, right? So I can edit the code like this and save, right? Change the file. Has syntax highlighting. This works perfectly fine for our purposes here. Now I can also add things as context. So if I want, I can, for example, select this and add as context, and then I can say change this to be something about AI website auditing. Right, so now it has that context and it will actually change the code. We can actually see that here in real time. So let's take a look here in a few seconds. So before it changes the code here, it actually asks us for permission. So here you can see it comes up with a diff. It wants to do this, and we can reject or edit it. Let's actually say we apply here, we accept here. And now you can see it has changed this here as well, right? So if you do prefer that view with the file open, that all works in Warp, right? So we don't lose that. Okay, for now I will close this. But I like in Warp that it's one chat feed essentially, right? So all the code changes, they appear in line here with the chat, which makes it easy to focus and actually understand the changes that the agent is making. So now I want to run the app. I could ask Warp to run the app, or, you know, this is something that I would just do myself, npm run dev. And this is an ongoing process, so I will probably open a new tab in a second, but let's actually open this up. Localhost 3000, here we see our Next.js boilerplate, right? So everything's still working. We set it up in Warp and everything's still working. Okay, so now I will leave this running and I will just open up a new tab so we can actually start implementing features. Now, before we do that, we see optimize Warp for this code base. So Warp can actually index your code base. It will make it much easier to find things, for example, and it can also generate rules here. Basically instructions for the agent. And in Warp, it's called WARP.md. So uppercase WARP.md. You can do that manually as well, by the way, with /. You can pick init here, right? So it will initialize and also generate that Warp file, or you can just click on optimize here and it will do the same thing. Yes, index and also generate the warp.md file. So this is also a good thing to start off with in the project. Okay, so now you can see it's starting to go through our code base here and it's trying to understand the project structure. All right, so then it wants to create that file. It will ask us for permission to do that. All right, so now it has created that file and we are good to go here. Okay, all right, so now if we look at our app, it's just the Next.js boilerplate. So now we could start off by, you know, creating perhaps a very long prompt saying exactly what the app needs to be and the features it needs to have, and that it needs to use the AI SDK. But before we do that, I want to set up the Context7 MCP server. So Context7 supplies your agent with up-to-date documentation. So for example, Next.js, pretty frequent updates. So these LLMs, they may be trained on an older version of Next.js. If they're going to look up data on the internet somewhere, right, it may still be outdated snippets of information somewhere. Ideally, we can always feed our AI agent with the absolute latest information about our tech stack. So we can do that with Context7. So we can do that with Next.js, but for a lot of other packages here as well, right? So an MCP server basically just gives tools to our agent, right? So we are using WARP code here as our agent. So if we say something like create an API route handler, make sure you're using the latest Next.js best practices, it may actually decide to invoke a tool contributed by the Context7 MCP server to look up the latest documentation. And we're going to use the AI SDK as well, so that is also here. Okay, now to do that, you do need to create an API key. So I have created an account and it will give you an API key. It's free as of recording. And then if you go to the Context7 GitHub repo, they will show you how to install it. So we are using WARP here and we just need to copy this snippet. Okay, so then here in WARP, we can do Command P for commands. There is actually open MCP servers, so let's go there. And if it's your first time here and you haven't added anything, you won't see anything here. It will say something like add an MCP server, right? So we can add an MCP server and here is where we want to paste that snippet, right? So, and then here you can see API key. Here's where we need to paste the API key that you can get by logging into Context7. So if you've done that, you will see Context7, make sure it's running. So sometimes you have to press start and it will try to connect and get it running, okay? So once it's running, it's contributing tools to our agent here. There are two tools: resolve library ID, basically helping it specify what library it should get documentation for, and then the actual get library documentation. Okay, so let's actually try that. So if you've installed that, we can click out of here and we can say something like, actually, let me try GPT-5 high reasoning. So let me actually try saying something like, can you get the latest Next.js documentation on API route handlers? So if you say something like that, it may decide to invoke the tool. And if it's not invoking the tool, you can be a little bit more specific. You can say something like use Context7, so it really knows to invoke the tool. All right, and here we go. So here it says, I will fetch the most up-to-date official documentation directly by resolving the Next.js library ID and then retrieving the documentation focused on API route handlers. So basically first it needs to get the exact library name. We will allow it to run that tool. Right, so now it has run one tool. Now it knows the exact library ID of which to get the documentation. So now it can use the other tool, get library docs, and it's going to be Next.js. It has some amount of tokens and about which specific topic, because otherwise it's going to be massive. It's too much. So you can specify the topic here. Well, if we can actually inspect the response here as well. So the tool call here in WARP, you can also view the response. You can see here it got back from Context7 something about API routes and route handlers, and there's code snippets in here specifying exactly what it should be. So now when we're going to build an AI chat here, it will need to use a route handler. So it's nice that we have the latest best practices for that. So with high reasoning, yes, it takes a little bit more time, but you get what you wait for. So I think it's worth it, but maybe for some other queries we'll use a lower reasoning here. All right, so let's actually try adding some features now. I opened up a fresh tab here and I have created a prompt that will tell the agent what to do here. So I'm telling it that the app should be an AI website auditor built with the latest AI SDK. The user should be able to chat with OpenAI's GPT 4.1 model. And the system prompt should be about auditing websites. And here I specified what the system prompt should be. So it's going to specify that when the user asks during the chat it's first going to use the check robots tool and then it will use the audit websites tool. So then we have specified something about those tools, clean design and only dark mode. And we can also say use Context7 to get latest documentation if necessary. Okay, so this is a bit of a bigger prompt. We'll see how it goes. In my experience so far with Warp code, it's actually been really good, even with the latest Next.js. So should work fine, and we can fine tune in a bit. I will also put this in the description of the video, so you can just copy and paste it. All right, so this will take some time. So one thing to do before you, go play a game of chess or whatever you do in between these agent runs is to decide on what you want to do when your approval is needed, right? So Warp will try to make file edits, and by default you need to approve. Do you want to manually approve everything and really stay on top of what it's doing? Then I think that's the way to go. But there is also an option here for auto approve all agent actions for this task. Of course, it's a bit riskier because it's just going to go ahead and do what it thinks it needs to do. So if you're okay with that risk, that is something that you can enable here as well. Okay, but I will actually just leave the default settings here, and let's just go ahead, allow it to make a bunch of changes here, which we will approve. So I like that I have to approve because it sort of forces me to stay up to date on what's happening as well. So especially here in the beginning, where this is like the first major prompt that we have where it's going to implement features and the structure of the app. We want to be very mindful of what's happening here. All right, so now you can see it has started to work on this, and it's going to scan our project, right? So we've indexed our code base, so it should help. And if it's a more complex query, it will actually come up with a plan first. So previously we had some simple prompts. It's not going to create a plan for that. But here you will actually see tasks. So it will split it up in tasks and we'll go through them one by one. So that's really nice. And then here it has already come up with a suggestion here for code changes. And I'm going to go ahead and apply this. And now it wants to run a command to install some packages here. We will just go ahead and run that as well. And I can always scroll up here, by the way, to see the tasks. So you can see it has already finished almost everything here. Now here it tends to want to start a dev server, which makes sense because it also helps it understand if everything is working. If something is wrong, it will throw an error, the dev server won't work. However, in this case, we already have a dev server running here. Okay, so in this case, I would like to instruct it to not start dev server. So what I can do is Command O. I can go to that WARP.md file that's in my project. I can just open it up directly in here. You can also open up your file tree here and find WARP.md right here. And I just add something like there is already a dev server running. Don't try to start dev servers. All right, so I'll just save here. This will be an instruction for the agent as we continue. Okay, and then let's actually check out the project structure that we have right now. So it has created a bunch of files here. So there is a chat component here. This is a client component, so it knows about client components. It would use client, which is also relatively recent. And it's using the use chat hook here, and it's connecting here with an API on API/chat. So that is going to be this one. You can see it has correctly used the folder structure here. So to create that route API chat. So here we have our route handler. Let's double check here. We have the actual function here. So it's an incoming request. And here we are actually streaming text. So we're using OpenAI 4.1. GPT 4.1. And then here we have that system prompt. So that looks good. And then here we have those tools. So we have two tools. First, it needs to check the robots.txt file. So it has implemented the tool here. So now the LLM can decide to invoke those tools. And after that, it can then run another tool, audit website tool. So let's actually see what we get now. Now we get an issue here. So it has to do with pretty complex issue actually. So this is pretty rare. So it's not a strange thing to be confused about. So I will just paste the error here and it comes up with a fix here super fast. Let's accept this. It has actually created a client chat wrapper, but that's not enough yet. So the issue persists here. Now I get a recommendation here. So let's actually try this. So it's going to go through the files here again. All right, so it wants to make a change here. I will apply. All right, so now it's finished. And now if I go back, indeed, that particular error is gone. Now we do see a new issue here, but this is totally normal because it's a massive prompt that I had. So obviously there's going to be a few errors here and there. I will just ask it to fix this one as well. Now, while it's doing that, as it's making these code changes, we can view diffs actually. So here, if you click on this, you will see the changes it has made and that we have not committed yet. So these are the open changes. You can see for each of these files, the changes it has made. So you can view the diffs directly inside Warp. You do not need to go to an IDE for that. Visible here in Warp as well, really nice. All right, so you can see it's doing a pretty deep dive. So it can do all these commands grabbing, finding all files, going through the files, and ultimately here it will try to run this to properly install that package, and it will actually update it here. Yeah, so here it's making a change, and that seems to have fixed. Now there are some minor issues, so should be easy for it to fix. All right, so it came up with a fix and I accepted it. And now if we check, we can see a UI here, and of course we can fine tune it, but let's actually just try something. Can we say something like, hello, how are you? I can actually submit here. Okay, so we do get an issue. So I will let Warp know. And it's not, and actually I think it has nothing to do with the code here. It's because we have not added an environment variable yet, right? So we want to make an API call to OpenAI. So of course we need an environment variable, but let's just wait a bit and see what Warp says to just confirm that, Okay, and actually it detected that it was an issue with an older version of the API of something in that package. It has given me a fix. So let's actually try it out. Hi, how are you? All right, so now indeed we can see that we need to add an OpenAI API key. Just up until this point, the code here has been really good actually. It was able to fix everything that we saw with just one prompt essentially, and it looks great here as well. Now we just need to make it work with an API key. But before we do that, let's actually try committing our code here, because it's a good point to save here. So you can do that right here in a terminal, right? So I can do git add, and now it's really nice in Warp. So if you want to do git commit, we can actually just accept this and commit. And now you can see if you go to those changes here, there are no open changes, right? So we have committed, so then it's gone again. All right, so now I want to add environment variables. Now in Next.js, this is typically done with a .env.local file, and we do not see it here in the file tree here in Warp. I think they do it because of security reasons, because, you know, there could be secrets in there. So we can ask it to create a .env.local file with the key for OpenAI. And then you can just use some other text editor very quickly to actually add the secret. So if you want to use OpenAI, you can go to their dashboard and you can create an API key. And then once Warp has created the file, you can just add it with any text editor. So here you can see it's gonna add this placeholder here. Okay, so it has created this, but yeah, you don't, I was not able to see it here, but that's okay. Okay, so I added the API key, so let's try again. We can say, hi, how are you? And let's see what we get. So, okay, so we get an issue here, no problem. Warp can fix it. It's really good so far at fixing these issues. All right, so it came up with a fix. And by the way, if we quickly want to see it, we can open up the diff panel here. You can see it has changed it into the input schema key here. I think that makes sense. So now if we try this, hi, how are you? We should see a response from the LLM, and in fact, yeah, we do. And actually it was streaming, so that is all working really nice. So it Warp so far, any issue that I gave it, it was able to fix it in one request. So really good at fixing issues. Now, what we want to do here is, of course, audit a website. So I could say something like, could you audit ByteGrad.com? So let's see what it can do with that. Now it needs to invoke tools, right? So let's actually see if that is going to go all right. So we see here AI, we don't see anything here. Okay, so we can just describe the issue. I don't see any response from the, please make sure it shows tool invocations and output from the tools. And of course, the actual final response from LLM. Okay, so let's give it some time to go over it. All right, so here it came up with some code changes here. So now it's going to render tool parts. And this is, I think, the right way to do it with tools in the AI SDK. Let's actually try this. So let's say, hi, how are you? Just to see if we get a response from an LLM. Okay, so we do see something here. We see something. We also see something with step start, but we can remove that in a second. We can say, can you audit the ByteGrad.com website? And let's see what can do with that. All right, so here we see we get a response here. Took a few seconds, but we do see check robots being invoked here, so that's good. And as we can see the input to that tool and the output of that tool. So in this case, it found that it is allowed to do so. So now there should be another tool invocation for actually auditing the website. So let's see if that works. So it doesn't seem to continue after that. So we can just say, so we will just tell it that it should continue after the check robots tool and that it should also remove this. All right, so here, let's take a look. Now it allows multi-step tool usage. So with the AI SDK, you can decide, for example, how many steps, iterations basically it's allowed to do. So let's see if that works now. Hi, how are you? I like to start off just to check if we can get a response from the LLM. Now we can try, can you audit ByteGrad.com? Now let's see what we get. So it uses the check robots tool, that's good. And then here we see the audit website tool, including output here. It found a title, but I didn't do a great job at the other things here. So we have some bad results here for ByteGrad, but it gives me some suggestions here on what I can fix for my own website. So now people can use this AI website auditor to easily check their website or other websites they may have. So that all looks good, and we can check the code here. Code looks really good actually, and I was able to fix any issue I have with one request. Yeah, the warp code is actually really good. I've genuinely enjoyed using it so far, and yeah, I think the UI here is great design as well. So hopefully you like Warp as well. So we've used Warp code here to build a sophisticated agent here with the latest Next.js AI SDK. Yeah, looks great as well, so great design as well. So I think you get the point. We can do a lot of things here with Warp. I have another video with Warp in which we look at some of the other settings that settings that you have in Warp, so check out that previous video. So actually I had a great time using Warp so far. Well done to the Warp team. If you want to sign up for Warp's Pro plan, you can use my coupon code all uppercase BYTE to get a great price. Enjoy Warp, and I hope that you enjoyed the video as well. I hope that you learned a little bit about AI SDK and how you can build these AI agents. In any case, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.